I started as a financial advisor after I taught college for a few years, and then I guess it was 2011, I thought, I was training horses, and I knew I wanted to change my flow around, and I thought, wouldn't it be amazing if I could help the people who really gave me most of what success I've found in my life. I attribute a lot of what I've been able to accomplish to AQHA. So it's an incredible honor to have the chance to just be here. I have an hour for an incredibly dry slideshow about retirement planning. And the truth of retirement planning is I don't think it really matters what I present on this slideshow. I think everyone needs to do some kind of planning, but at the basis of that planning, just like a professional horseman's relationship, is trust, because everyone out here, you're receiving among the most precious things from your client base. I mean, I have horses in my own barn, and I know it could be 3 in the morning, and if you have something that you're walking because it's colicking, doesn't matter if that person has to be at work at 6. Sometimes they show up to be there with you. But that trust factor, I think, is what I wanted to talk to you about today. I wanted to give you an idea of why I'm here to help, and I want to give you an idea of how I got to be a financial advisor, because it really happened by accident. I told Benny Sargent when I saw him yesterday, my AQHA number is 1817245. He told me his AQHA number starts with a 0, so I've not been around quite that long, but I'm a longtime member. I think I joined in 87 or 88. Jenny, I used to call her Hollywood when I was a kid. Yeah, that's a good nickname for her. She's got an aura. But Wayne and Jenny and that time in Nebraska, they sort of helped me branch out and end up here in Jacksonville, Florida, and training horses in quite a few different states. The stories that got me here, my voice might crack. There's this man named Bob Roan who I met, he died in a plane crash when I was in high school, and I have not talked about him much, certainly not in public, because that man changed my entire life. He could teach a horse to change leads like you wouldn't believe, and that man just kind of took me under his wing. I was a kid from a ranch in western Nebraska, and I met Bob at a truck stop in Ogallala, and he had this western hauler and a 6-horse trailer. It was all white with these fancy blue stripes, and we had just taken a load of horses to the Ogallala sale barn to sell them. At that point, you were still maybe, we were getting $1,000 a head maybe. The market hadn't dropped. But so my dad was driving this ranch stock trailer that was like half covered up front and half not covered in back, and we pulled up to the pumps, and Bob's fancy rig was sitting there. And Bob was a fit man. We're about the same size. In fact, I still have a pair of his Wranglers at my house. But he had a sweatshirt tucked in and a world champion buckle from AQHA. And I thought, well, I didn't meet Bob at first. I was looking at the horses, and I thought, oh my goodness. I don't know where these horses came from, but I know I want all of them. I need all these horses. And so that's how I met Bob Roan. That's how I got introduced to AQHA. He ended up, I told my dad, I was like, I got to have one of these horses. And Bob said, well, you just bring that boy out. I just moved to Castle Rock, Colorado from California. You bring him out and we'll put him on some horses. And fast forward, that would have been like 86. Fast forward to today, I'm still riding a lot of the tack that he left me when he died. I started going out on the road because he gave me the gift of these horses and horsemanship and this ability to take something that's raw and make it beautiful. So I traveled around a bit showing horses, and then I decided, well, I got to go back to school. I can't just be a horse trainer. I knew I wanted to do more because Bob used to tell me, you know, you're really good at pushing a broom, but you probably ought not forget to pick up your books. And so I kind of veered hard away from that for a while, but then that voice kept coming back. So I went back and got some degrees, and the whole time I was still riding and training horses. I didn't really have a plan. And 2010, right before Thanksgiving, I was training horses in Wyoming. For the state of Wyoming, I was training pack horses that were largely quarter horses. I'd take these kids for this state program. Wyoming has this amazing program where they bring at-risk and troubled youth from California who've been arrested for like drugs or gang violence, and they would come in these 15 passenger vans, and 13 at a time with 2 counselors. I'd take them up above the tree line on these horses. The 2 individuals who gave us all these horses that we built were named Dick Van Pelt and Sam Kinniston. Both of them are awesome people too. Dick Van Pelt just moved to Arizona. In 2010, Sam died on a horse that we had, a really nice quarter horse named Dividend, a stud horse prospect, really nice cow horse, roping horse. And it was cold that day, really cold. We went into the indoor and Sam was dead. And he was just on the ground and the stud was saddled in the arena with him. And Dick and Sam had been friends since they were kids. And at that moment, I saw Dick just sort of break down and lose his marbles for about 4 hours in this indoor while we processed all this stuff. And we got in his truck. He said, "You're going to have to drive." We were in tie siding, Wyoming. It was starting to snow and the sun was down. And he said, "Don't you go yet, though." And so I sat there. A lot of my best stories happened in dualies. I hope that's the same for all of you. But I sat there, and I was like, I'm in Dick's nice dually that mine's all raggedy, but his is loaded to the gills, and I'm waiting for him to tell me to go because I'm ready to end this day. And he said, "You got to change your flow, son." And I said, "Well, tell me, what do you mean, Dick?" And he said, "You know why Sam was out here today, don't you?" And I said, "Well, because he loves horses." And he said, "Well, yeah, fair enough. Sam did love horses, but that's not why he was out here today. It's miserable cold today. No one loves horses enough to ride when it's this dang cold." And I said, "Fair enough." He said he's out here because it's the only way Sam's ever made money. And this is a big deal for him. At the time, I was teaching at the University of Wyoming and running these pack trips, and I had to teach at the University of Wyoming because I wanted to have health insurance. We just had our second daughter, and Dick said, "You could probably train fewer horses and find a job that you could control your own destiny in a similar way." And Dick started giving recruiters my phone number, which is ultimately how I ended up managing a team of financial advisors at Mutual of Omaha, where my partner, now Joe Schreck, was my regional director. Joe Schreck was in Wisconsin, and one day they put his mailbox right above mine, and I was like, "Who the heck is this guy moving in on my territory?" And first time I met him, I thought, well, this is it. This is my new barn. Joe, let's go. We're gonna build something completely different. So that's how I got here today. In 2013, I started talking to people about everyone I wanted to help. And a lot of our job is helping people who have more traditional benefits. And we can provide a lot of guidance and a lot of pathway to them too. But I know without a shadow of a doubt where I can help most is with people just like you who get up every morning, who work hard, who love things without reason, who have incredible discipline. That's one thing I know to be absolutely true about the horse world. So my goal in coming here is really to create a forum where people that want help, that want advice, know where they can go to get it. Because I feel like I understand in a fairly unique way how the horse industry works, how a professional horseman makes a living, and what challenges are presented to that individual along the way. Like Robin said, I still do ride horses, not daily anymore, but weekly. I've got 3 little girls that are on them about any day they can pull them out. I've got a small training facility. There are only about 10 horses at my place, and I have 3 really strong women who keep my barn in order and help my little girls saddle their horses while Joe and I are out trying to manage 401ks and manage individual client assets. So a lot of what I'm talking about today is just that. I've revamped a slide presentation that we give to a lot of different business owners. Everyone from the individual who owns a smoothie shop to the Southern Company's executives. I brought this slideshow because I feel like in the horse industry, there is that wide a gamut of client base for everyone. Preparing for this, I looked at a lot of stuff because I think all of us know this is a pretty unique and incredible industry, but I wanted to give you some numbers to just help you understand how amazing professional horsemen are and what an impact they have in our country. The first one is pretty staggering. The horse industry in the United States of America directly impacts the economy more than the film industry. I don't know if anyone can wager a guess as to how many dollars the horse industry directly contributes to the gross domestic product of the United States of America annually. Does anybody have a guess? Does anybody know that answer? $8.1 billion is close. Close, a little low. It's actually $40 billion, $40 billion to gross domestic product annually in the United States alone. Now that's direct contribution. So that's Robin and Jenny, that's everything that goes around their training operation centered just on the horses. That's not all the indirects. Right now, we had some talk already about, we've got multiple events happening around the country, and I know there are people getting on planes to go from here to those events to get on horses. That's indirect revenue from the horse industry. Any estimation about the indirect revenue the horse industry throws into the gross domestic product of the United States of America annually? All you professional horsemen, I don't know how many clients you all have, but that includes all your clients travel into your barn. It includes all the meals your clients eat travel into your barn. It includes all the things they buy at the stores when they're visiting your barns and your shows that they forgot to pack. That includes all the hotel stays. That includes all the entertainment they do when they're out and about with you professional horsemen. Any guess as to what that takes that number to? It's big. $102 billion annually. $102 billion. Now, let's be honest about that. AQHA is not responsible for all $102 billion of the gross domestic product increase annually. But I do agree that AQHA is in a position to be the ESPN of the equine world. I think their membership base and their mission is the most clear of any organization out there. I want to thank Robin and Karen for working to get me here. And I'm going to go into this slideshow and kind of start to talk about what it is we do. At the basis of everything we do is at the basis of everything you do. It's a person-to-person relationship. It's a lot of phone calls. It's a lot of face-to-face across-the-table meetings. It's a lot of me understanding what you need for me to do to provide the best level of service for you. And all of you are familiar with this relationship because you deal with it daily, hourly in your horse businesses, because you don't keep your horses unless you work in the same way that I work with clients. And so that's why I knew when I found this is where I was going to stay, and it might just allow me the opportunity to come back in and compete on my own horses, not as a professional, but as a dad and an amateur and someone who's a professional in a different capacity. We've talked a little bit about retirement. Retirement's a funny thing. You know, in some ways, Sam dying in that arena wasn't a terrible deal because he didn't have to, we sold that horse, but he didn't have to sell another one, and he wasn't prepared. And so that's part of what, it was a big wake-up call for me personally, because although I had been working at the university, I really hadn't been saving. I hadn't been talking about what happens when I want to feed my horses in the future. What happens when I don't want to get up and go to work, but I just want to go to Oklahoma City and compete. I think retirement means a lot of things to a lot of people, and I don't think it really matters. I think you've got to figure out your why and why it makes sense to you and start somewhere, because starting somewhere is where everything begins. You know, I don't think professional horsemen, if they're doing it right, really have to correct as many problems as they have to create good habits. And I see that as my role here. It's not that much different than, I love to start horses. And starting horses, if you measure everything twice, so you're only cutting once, and you take your time, a lot of times you can prevent that having to correct anything. I think that's kind of my take for this too. You know, we're creating discipline, we're creating good habits. My goal is to help people understand that retirement is about getting in the habit of paying future self. So I talk to people a lot about that. You know, President Sam is very satisfied with past Sam for talking to the professional horsemen about future Sam's idea for changing the face of the industry and helping people learn how to save money so that they can have all the opportunities that corporate America gives their employees without thinking about it. Will you live to be 100? The whole thing about retirement planning is, especially as a professional horseman, it gets harder and harder. I'm about to be 40 years old, and I can still get on a horse pretty easily. But I can see already that I don't want to be riding 20 horses a day, and there was a time in my life where you couldn't keep me off a horse. Now, in all fairness, I would guess that I've lived hard enough that I might not make it to 100. And I would suspect that most of my professional horsemen friends also might not make it that long. But I would hate to be the guy at the helm who didn't plan for someone to have the capital to live that long and thrive in the way that they always have. One thing that I think that's really interesting is, you know, a lot of professional horsemen are watching clients who are paying them a monthly fee to take care of something beautiful. But those clients are also living in a way that a lot of professional horsemen have a hard time mirroring because they're making money separate from the care and maintenance of animals, which is unpredictable and often unforgiving. So, will you live to be 100? Scientists say yes. My mind still can't believe that. Although, one of the cool things about being in financial services is that you get to talk to a lot of people considerably smarter than yourself. And I was talking to an actuary when my third daughter was born who told me, well, she'll live to be 120 or so. And I said, no way, no way, no way, no way. And he insists that that's coming for all of us. And so the retirement problem then gets considerably bigger as you add that longevity. And I'm not saying that to scare you, I'm saying that as a reminder that, by goodness, you're 30 years training from, say, 25 to 55, which I would guess when the professional horseman is most productive, you need to figure out somehow how to harvest some amount of dollars from those 30 years to hand it back 65 to 95 at least. So retirement planning challenges, they're there for everybody. But I mean, it's the idea that what if for 30 or 40 years of your life, you're not generating revenue? You're getting maybe a small amount of money from the government. Maybe you've got certain things going, but you've not really saved to provide monthly or annual income. The things that are going to erode that are your cost of healthcare is going up, and your housing costs, although they may be somewhat stable, are never really absent. You can't get away without paying for certain things like a roof over your head, food to eat, the utilities that keep you warm and safe. There are a bunch of images in this slide that, frankly, I think are more complicated than they need to be. I think retirement planning is actually very simple. When I was on the road, there really weren't, I used an atlas still when I was showing, and now in my day-to-day travels for Piedmont Group, I use this thing, and I actually have a headphone in my pocket right now. I just put this guy in, and there's a little voice that kind of tells me where I'm going to go. I kind of think that's my job as a financial advisor for anyone, because you're going down a path, whether you believe it or not. You're going down a path toward retirement. Time does not stop. My goal, when you get off track, is to help you with a plan to get to the end point that you tell me you want to get to. So if the end point's Scottsdale, I'm going to probably advise against you going through Lansing, right? And when I see you heading that way, I'm going to be like, hold on, let's go west, not north. And so I think that's a lot of what my job is. You can see right here, couples have an 89% chance of a partner living over the age of 85. I don't know when a professional horseman retires. My sense is that they never do. But I know when a professional horseman needs money, and that's every day. Inflation, there are a bunch of scary figures around inflation, and frankly, the graphs don't make much sense to me. None of them do. I think underwriters and actuaries and statisticians, they can manipulate this however you want, but all of us in this room understand the difference between $1 when I was born in 1978 and $1 when my daughter was born in 2016. The best way I can think to show this is with these two icons. To be honest, I'm not crazy about a Mustang car. I'm really not crazy about cars. Trucks or buses are my deal. Real Mustangs I'd take. But I think this is a pretty important image to think about. This talks about the eroding value of your dollar over the next 20 years. And what I did is rewind it a ways to show. So in 1965, you'd had a heck of a time paying $5,000 for that convertible Mustang, which incidentally today, my mother-in-law's father, when he died, he had two of these. One that was a coupe with an air conditioner and one that's a convertible just like that. And that car today, unbelievably, is worth double what it was worth in 1965. So this is a sidetrack, and I'm not sure what it says about inflation, but you look at what that same Mustang costs in 2017, it's not a stretch to say you're spending 10 times more. 10 times more for the same vehicle. So it gives you an idea of what we're preparing for. Now, the good news is part of what a financial advisor does, beyond like rerouting you, if you're heading to Scottsdale and you're going through Michigan, I'm going to say, no, don't go to Michigan. That's a bad way. The other thing we do is create an environment where assets will outpace inflation. So this isn't a big problem unless we're not saving any money. And if we're not saving any money, then that graph you show where the inflation goes up, you can just create an opposite sine curve for what your dollar is going to feel like when you're 65, 75, 85 years old. That's the whole reason I'm here today, to try and show you what that looks like over time. Healthcare costs, we all know healthcare costs are astronomical. There's nothing we're going to do to change that. The thing we have to do is prepare for it. As a financial advisor, there's a lot of stuff we do. People think we're just managing returns. Can you get me, we get someone 15% on an account. Can you get me 20% is their main question. The reality is we're all working with the same tools. We're all using, the market that we have access to when we're investing is the same for everyone out there. So there's not a whole lot of manipulation that we're doing there. I really think my job is to look at a comprehensive plan, to look at everything. What are the risks to your assets, and what do we need to be doing to prevent future losses from assets? Healthcare is one of the biggest parts of that. When you're young and you have your health, there are opportunities for people to plan ahead to pay for that future healthcare expense. I left this slide in because I think it's just more incredible for every professional horseman. One thing I know, my best friends are all professional horsemen. And they all have a lot of things in common. They have a whole lot of depreciating assets. They have generally a whole lot of real estate property. And they have money tied up in horses that could or could not generate a sizable return. This slide right here illuminates. How do I get this thing to go? There we go. It says what the biggest percent of expense for a retiree's budget is. And these numbers get kind of scary. This recreation is 5.3%. I would suspect there are a lot of professional horsemen in our circles who have witnessed this happening. That someone exits the workforce and the money they've been paying to haul up and down the road, the money they've been paying to put horses in your barn changes. And it may not change where they say no more, but they may begin to make different pointed decisions about where and when they can travel, where they can show. How can they get the most points with the least amount of mileage paid to someone? And no offense to any of you, it's expensive to haul horses up and down the road. So that's a small percentage right there. But that affects all of you too. Healthcare, just double it. Food, none of us are going to go without food. We're going to have to eat. We're probably going to want to eat better as we get older. Transportation, I'm also not tech savvy, so I didn't know how to make that a dually. But it should be a dually, and it should have probably a 6 to 8 horse trailer behind it. Hopefully by the time you get to this point, they're paid for. But it's a ticking time bomb. All of us know it, the longer you're running that thing up and down the road, the more your expenses go. That same graph, you could get an actuary to create that same dang graph for your rig. That cost of running an 8-horse trailer to Scottsdale over time exponentially increases as all the U-joints wear out, as the injectors go. Now here's the big one, and it's even bigger for any professional horseman. It's housing. I wish I could say that every single individual planning client Joe and I sit down and talk with has their house paid for when they retire, but that's not the case. The United States is an interesting beast. We've got we've created a culture where once you get comfortable, you push again. And so it's not uncommon that I have a really close friend and client who just retired, and in the retirement decision, sold a house that was paid for to buy 2 times the house, like a mile and a half away. And it's hard for me to pass judgment on anyone. It's not my job. My job is to tell that individual what the impact is of that financial decision over the next 30 years of that couple's life. And those are hard conversations to have. And in this case, this was a single family dwelling. This is not even an acre tract. This is in the middle of Atlanta. This is an Atlanta zip code, 30338. All of you have considerably more housing risk than this. Where I live in South Georgia, you don't have to drive very far to find equine facilities that are just in shambles. And it's not because the person who built it wanted it to look that way. It's because the energy that once drove the revenue for that place is no more. That's why I'm here. That's what I want to help with. And you know, I'm going to be here most of the day, but we're not going to solve any of these problems today. My goal is to keep coming back and to keep being a resource for everyone. So if you can think of someone while I'm talking that would value a conversation with me, a lot of what I do is over the phone until it's not. And I would love to come to anyone's facility, ride a few horses, and talk numbers. We talked a little bit about housing. You're not going to get away from the expense of that. And termites, gutter repair, new roof, new windows, wider doors only gets harder in a horse facility, whether or not you're actively involved in the daily training or not. Because we all know horses are ruining your barn right now while we're sitting here. There is a horse chewing on something. There is a horse kicking at a wall. There's something, you will get home and there will be a waterer that is destroyed. If that ever does stop, tell me when. Because as I've gotten older, I've just learned that it seems like the expenses appear to compound. My life was incredibly simple for about a dozen years. I lived in a Bluebird Wander Lodge and had a 3-horse, 4-star aluminum trailer that I pulled behind it. And I kind of bounced to everyone else's place and plugged into a 50-amp plug. And it's pretty easy to keep a rig and a trailer roadworthy. And I felt like at that time, man, this is a hard gig, keeping Maybelline going up and down the road. It's a ton of expenses. And then you sell the bus. You grow up, you have a few kids, you sell the bus and you put a down payment on a place with a barn and a house and multiple roofs and some coops and fence and fence and fence and fence. And all of a sudden you realize, man, what I thought was expensive in a 35 or maybe total 50-foot rig is astronomically different, even on 5 or 10 acres. I'm not sure any of this is actually important for what we do. The sequence of return of losses and accounts no doubt can have a detrimental effect on a portfolio, but a lot of this is incredibly boring. And actually, exactly why you would pay someone like me. For the same reason people are paying you to keep horses is why you would pay an advisor to handle all this. The truth of it is, we're making changes based on algorithms within portfolios. It's happening right now while I'm talking. We're readjusting things to make sure that we're preventing future losses and making sure we're pulling out assets as necessary. And really what that means is paying attention to when we bought and sold. And this is what I think is really important. And what I think resonates most to me from my time in the horse world. You don't make your money selling anything. You make your money buying. And so that's true dealing with the markets too. If you buy a horse at 35 grand and sell it at 30 grand, it doesn't matter how awesome that horse was, that was a stupid idea. Same thing in the stock market. You buy it at 250 a share and you sell it at 209 a share, that was a dumb idea. Part of what an advisor's team does is help you make educated decisions about when to buy low so you don't have to sell as high to make your profit. And every professional horseman worth their salt knows that. Because, that's why we're called horse traders. That's why horse traders can do anything and why they're a worthy adversary across from any table. Because they know what that margin is and they know what margin they need to make that a worthwhile deal. Same thing. The only shift I've made is in surrounding myself with a team that helps me look at markets and financial products like a yearling prospect and say, I can't give you 15 grand for this yearling prospect because it's not worth 15 grand. I'll tell you what I can give you. And then you show them the cash. That is what I do right now. I've just switched my flow with Joe and our team to create an environment where we can tell you what your margins are, where you can buy to make money long term. Talking about, everyone says the market's overinflated right now, and I don't know how much any of you even follow what's going on. But I think that's true and not true. We sat in a presentation yesterday. A lot of our presentations are fairly dry, and most of the people in those presentations do not have a beard or long hair, and they're considerably older than me. But you hear some stuff every now and then that really makes you think. And the presentation yesterday, this slide makes me think of it because we were listening to this guy who said that in China, the millennial population in China, and I'm trying not to butcher this, there are 1 billion millennials in China who own homes. 60% of those citizens own their home debt-free. Part of what our job is as advisors is to look at what opportunities exist, not just in Florida or Texas or Georgia, but what opportunities do we have to make money in this global economy? Part of why you hire an advisor team is to stay on the pulse of this. Because if you start thinking about a consumer economy where I am not a millennial, I'm a Gen Xer, but my fabulous partner, Jose Shrek, is a millennial. So now you imagine what 600 million Joe Shreks would look like back there. All of them owning a home in a burgeoning consumer economy. America thinks they're pretty hot stuff. The stock market, there are people saying it's overinflated. But there are 600 million millennial Chinese citizens who own their home outright and are now buying cars and iPads and laptops and desktops and taking trips to the Rocky Mountains. And that is why you hire a team of advisors, for us to help you find where to put your money, because there are options there where you can buy low and sell high within 3 to 4 days. All of this gets incredibly complicated, and I only have a few minutes left. I'm happy to answer any questions you have. My sense from doing this quite a bit is that I don't often get questions when I'm at a podium or on a stage. Most of the questions come later. But if anyone would like to ask a question, raise your hand and I'll field it right now. In the meantime, what I really want to close with, I just want to tell you, I hope you understand how amazing it is to have the opportunity to be here. I'm sure you can tell by the way my voice cracked. I don't take this lightly. I consider it to be an incredible responsibility, one that I am worthy of tackling for anyone. The truth of that is, we've already got business happening all over the equine market. Most of those clients are your clients. And I watch your clients save money in their corporate accounts, save money in other accounts, and pay you. And I also know the numbers behind a lot of this. And the numbers are scary. The truth is, you could hire a team like ours annually for what one stall's revenue generates monthly. Your contribution to a retirement account should really be 10% of your training income. At a bare minimum, our best clients are putting 20 to 30% of what they make away. Now that seems sometimes impossible, and I got to tell you it's improbable if you're saving $100 today to go to saving $1,000 tomorrow. But I think the truth is that's what we're all accustomed to doing anyway. You know, you get on a horse, whether you're trying to get it to work for a client or yourself, you can't take big bites. When you take big bites, that's often when things begin to unravel. The only way you can change something is a little bit at a time. It's through discipline, it's through consistency, it's through process. And I know without a shadow of a doubt that every professional horseman has discipline, has process, and has a desire to feed future horses. I know this because I'm one of them. I know that I'm not spending my entire life, no offense, even presenting to professional horsemen. I'm going to, at some point, just hop in a bus with my girls or 3 horses behind and go compete against the likes of your clients. I know that's the case for all of us. I want to say that this will be like a straightforward path for everyone. That, you know, you could reach out to an advisor and within a year we'd have you on track. But the reality is, this is an ongoing process. It's something that you're going to completely change, which is why that map in my ear, the Waze on my phone, makes so much sense to me. Because your business changes. Your business is in a state of constant flux. And having the right team behind you to help you understand what you should do when those changes happen is really why I'm here. Does anyone have any questions? No? Stocks, bonds, the big thing, chart your course. I'm going to talk just a little bit further about what this would look like. Say I get a call and we're going to build a set of benefits for a barn. I want to spend 5 minutes just kind of telling you what my team does and how that looks. Because it's not really that complicated. A lot of what my job is to go to one of you, sit down across the table and get the details for how you're generating revenue and how you're handling your expenses and how you're managing your existing cash flow. That happens over an hour or 2 of conversation. At that point, what we do is work with actuaries and CFPs and CPAs and attorneys to create the framework for everything from 401ks to individual health benefits. And all of this is at a small business's disposal. It seems a little bit difficult at times, but the reality is there are companies out there that are looking for each and every one of you. There are people out there who believe in the importance of this and want to make a change where they can. The biggest problem I see for all of us is that I'm not sure where the predictable income comes when you can't fill your own training stalls anymore. Which is part of why when Dick Van Pelt told me I needed to reverse my flow, it started to make sense. I was lucky all that happened right when my second daughter was born, because something crazy happens when kids come around. You're all of a sudden, it's just like this gut check. You know, I I'm not just Sam in a bus anymore. I need to pay attention. And the predictable income is one of the things I'm talking to my friends about most. Not every professional horseman friend I have will have access to Social Security. And there are advisors out there who believe it won't exist at all. I'm not one of those. But predictable income, I think, is where it starts. How would we prepare for you to have however much you're spending right now, at least matched with inflation in the future? And then how would we access it? Which, everyone, like I said, everyone's thinking our advisor team is just, well, you got us 16% last year. Can you get us 22? That's really not the game. Like I told you, it's just like the horse world. You make your money buying, not selling. If you buy right, you can sell right, and you'll make your money. So how do we access these accounts once we've saved all this money? And what's the sequence of returns for accessing these accounts? Because the right financial advisor team can actually make you money, pulling money out of your accounts as well. And then what are we doing to consistently drive growth? And growth can't stop when you stop funding your accounts. We've got to have a framework that keeps your money growing until you're no longer here if we do it correctly. The 4-box strategy is, all of this is stuff we get into fairly extensively across the table from clients. And depending on how much the client wants to be involved, sometimes we don't even present this to them. Because we have clients that say, listen, here's what matters to me. I need this, this, and this, and I expect you to do it. I'm going to fire you if you don't. It's a fairly straightforward relationship. Now, as a professional horseman, I don't get a whole lot of engineers as clients because, well, I'm not engineer-minded. But there are people out there who will go through this with a fine-tooth comb. What I've found from my professional horseman friends is they're more in tune with me. They're more like, listen, this is what I need you to do. I need this and this and this. These are the concerns I have. This is the problem I see with me getting there. Here's why I need your help. I'm comfortable going both ways. Projected asset growth, funding discretionary expenses. Now we're starting to talk about products, and I really don't think the products matter. I don't think anyone's going to be frustrated with me if they save money and 20 years from now have money that they didn't remember saving as much of. So I think you could pick any product. Actually, we have an open architecture firm, so you could literally, we could pick anything we want. We could pick investments from any investment company you want. We could write you risk-based products from from hundreds of companies. And I think the point is, the companies don't matter. It's the discipline of saving consistently. It's the process of preparing to feed your future horses. It's this idea that you won't always fill your barn. You won't always sell a 6-figure horse. You're not always going to have a $25,000 commission come in every year. And when you don't, what then? Planning ahead. It's the whole reason I'm here. I'm happy to talk with any of you individually. I would love it. And if I can't help, I can find you someone wherever you sit in this country that's close enough to the horse industry that I can help them understand who you are and what you're looking for. So if it's not me, find someone, because there are talented people out there who want to help each and every one of you. And use me as a resource, however you want to. I would love to do business with everyone, but I really think the deal is creating a forum for professional horsemen to begin to talk about this. The truth is, if we're driving $102 billion into the GDP of the United States of America annually, and we don't have money to retire on, shame on us, because we're driving a large chunk of the revenue that all my other business owners are harvesting for their future retirement. I watch it happen all the time. And so, let me know what I can do to help. And thank you for listening to me today.